Hey everyone, Ryan here at Etrailer. Today on our 2024 Ram 2500, we're going to be showing you how to install the B&W underbed hitch for companion fifth wheels. Before we do that though, let's take a moment, check this out, and make sure it's going to be the right setup for you. For those of you whose trucks don't have that OEM factory prep package, this is going to be a great way for you to be able to hook up to your larger type trailers, right? And with this particular setup, you almost get 2 for 1. And I say that because the hitch is going to come with the goose ball here. So if you're hooking up to your gooseneck trailer, you got everything you need right out of the box. But on the other hand, let's say if you want to pull a fifth wheel, you could pull this out, and then B&W offers what's called the companion. It's a fifth wheel hitch that's designed to work with the underbed hitch. That'll drop in here and allow you to hook up to a fifth wheel trailer too. So if you ever change stuff up or anything like that, this hitch is really versatile and gives you a lot of room to grow. If you're familiar at all with the towing world, chances are pretty good you've probably heard of that B&W name, and there's a reason for it, and that's because they make awesome parts. You know, everything is really well thought out, fits excellent, so on and so forth. And this one is no exception here. I think it's a great matchup with this truck. There's another hitch made by Kurt that's similar to this one, and that's a really good fit for the truck as well. You can't really go wrong with either one of them. I think what really separates B&W in this case is kind of going the extra mile with the quality of craftsmanship. The ball that the hitch is going to come with is going to be 2 5/16 in diameter, so really standard size there. And the hitch is going to have a 7,500 pound vertical load limit. That's the amount of weight pushing down on it, and a 30,000 pound maximum gross trailer weight rating, so the amount of weight pulling on it. I do always like to recommend though, never a bad idea just to grab your Ram's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure that your truck can handle that amount of weight safely. And one thing that's really nice with the B&W kit, the ball is a turnover style. So if you pull that out, it's really well made. It's squared, so it's not going to rotate in the hitch. But whenever you're not using it, you can take the ball, flip it upside down, and then you're really not going to have anything in the way of your truck bed. So you'll still have that full bed access. And the safety chain hooks are spring loaded, so they sit down flat, and they're large enough to where you can pull them up and hook up your trailer safety chains to them without any issues there. But one thing I do want to mention, this little piece of rubber that I got going around here, this doesn't come included with the hitch. This is just something that I personally do with my installations. I think it kind of cleans up the install look a little bit better, and it's just a little piece of rubber, like a U-channel piece of rubber that goes around there. So if you want to do yours like that, I'm sure you can find this type of stuff at the hardware store, but just wanted to throw that out there. With that said though, how the hitch is going to remain flush and looking good and not taking up any space is because it's going to live underneath the truck. So why don't we take a look at that real quick. This is what the hitch is going to look like underneath your truck. And not really a whole lot to it. These Rams already have this big factory cross member already in place. And so really the hitch is just this center section here. So there's not a lot of parts to it. It works well with the factory equipment that's already there, that all these trucks are going to have. And, as far as clearance and everything goes, I don't really see any issues when it comes down to that. So overall, just like pretty much anything B&W, really good fitment and should hold up over time. As far as compatibility, the hitch is going to work more or less across the board. Whether you have a long bed, a short bed, a diesel, a gas, 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, doesn't matter. The hitch will bolt up in the truck and be a good fit. A lot of people do ask about suspension upgrades or enhancements and if they're going to work with the trailer hitch. And it's hard to speak across the board for every single one, but just given the fact that how our underbed hitch mounts up utilizing that factory beam and everything under there. And with really nothing being in the way of the suspension components, I really don't see why it would be an issue or run into any issues when using upgrades like an air spring, for example. I guess while we're right here too, the way that you operate the hitch, if you will, is the handle mechanism here. So when the handle's like this, the ball is going to be locked into position, and then whenever you're ready to change that, let's say if you're unhooked and you want to flip the ball over, store it in the hitch, or do whatever you need to do, you pull straight out, then forward a little bit, and it'll stay in that open position so you can do what you need to do, lock it right back in. Something I do always like to recommend whenever setting up an in-bed hitch is also in-bed wiring, and that's exactly what we did here today. This one's made by Bargman. Gives you that 7-way round connector. That way when you're hooked up to your trailer, you can take that wiring connector, plug it in right here, as opposed to having to drape it over your tailgate and plug it into the connector on the back bumper. Other than that, a hitch you really cannot go wrong with. Whenever I'm setting up hitches that are more heavy duty and stuff like this, B&W is always my go-to. I'm just a big fan of them. They work like you'd expect them to. They fit like you'd expect them to, and you can't really ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, you know, it's not the worst one that I've done, or the easiest by any means. I'd say it's somewhere in the middle probably. I will say make sure you have a sharp hole saw and some sharp drill bits, because you are going to have to drill a hole here for the hitch to come through. B&W gives you some templates so you really don't even have to measure anything. So they try to do their best to make it as straightforward as possible. This is doable. It's going to take you some time for sure. So just stay patient, and hopefully a couple things that I learned along the way, I can help you out and make it a little more easy on you. With that said though, if this is something you don't feel like messing with, have the time or place to work on it, I definitely understand that. You can always use our dealer locator network, and I can help you find a shop in your neighborhood that can set something like this up for you. But if you're going to give it a go, hang around, we'll go ahead, pull into the garage, and get started on it now. To begin our installation, we're going to be underneath the back of our truck, and it definitely helps if you temporarily lower and remove your spare tire. It just gives you a lot more room to work. So I've done that, and the same is also going to hold true for this heat shield here. There's several fasteners holding it in place. We'll start with the ones over on the passenger side of our frame. So we have these three. You can use a 10mm socket to pull those out. I have one right there. And then there's two more that are really tricky to see, but they're pretty much, you know, the same setup. Right back here, and right back here over on this end. Once we get that last one out, we can set our heat shield off to the side. We are going to need to let our exhaust come down a little bit to give us more room to work. We'll start with this hanger here and kind of go from there, see if that'll be enough. If not, we might have to pop a few more off. But with these, I spray them down with soapy water or some sort of lubricant. And then I like to just grab the exhaust system and kind of work it a little bit, help get that soap water in there better. Then I just take a pry bar and pry one end of the hanger off here. That one removed, honestly, it didn't give us a whole lot of extra room, so we might need to go, continue the exhaust pipe up towards the front and take off one or two more. Right behind our muffler, we have two more hangers, one here and one there, and I'll take those off the same way we just did the other one. However, I did take a little strap and just run it around our crossmember here and around the exhaust. That way it'll have some support, but we can help control how far and how fast we let the exhaust come down. Those other two hangers removed, I loosened up our strap, and although it didn't come down a ton, we definitely gained a lot more working room. Now we can grab our template, which is this piece of metal here. You're going to have this oval shaped hole in it. That's going to line up with this hole here in the center section piece. And just to give you a reference, this is on the passenger side of our truck, and we're looking towards the front of the truck. And then in this corner over here, there's going to be two small holes, a square one and a round one. We're going to be using the round hole. All right, the square one, it's used in kind of a special circumstance, which the vast majority of people aren't going to have, but double check your instructions in your truck. If yours is set up how they say, you can use that one. But what we're looking to do is slide that in place, right? And we want that oval hole to line up with the round hole there. And we want it pushed not only flat against this surface, but also flat against the bottom of our truck bed. And then we'll make a mark there so we know where to drill. What I did, where we made our mark, I came back with a little center punch and put an indentation in there just to make it easier for our drill bit to catch. So I have a small bit. We're going to drill right up through that and make a pilot hole. Up here in the truck bed, we can see where our pilot hole was, and we can come back with the final size hole saw here and get it completely drilled out. Kind of a quick point or two to help prevent your blade, or your hole saw rather, from kind of wanting to walk on you if you're running into that. You can always take a piece of plywood, put an opening in that. Then you can stand on this just to help keep it more stable. So once you get the hole made, go ahead, clean out all the metal shavings from inside of your truck bed. And I'm just going to come back with a piece of sandpaper. You can use a file to just kind of smooth out any sharp edges that might be present on the opening. And then one thing I like to do is come back with a paint stick and cover up that bare metal just to help keep it protected from corrosion and rust, things like that. Now that the hole is drilled, moving back underneath the truck, if you happen to have any wires or lines or anything like that that are pushed in place into this cross member that'll interfere with the placement of our center section, go ahead and get those removed. A lot of times you just take a trim tool or a flathead screwdriver and just pop the little plastic fasteners out to get them out of the way. In our case, our truck, we're wide open. We don't have any of that, so it's something you don't have to worry about. We can get these fastener blocks into position now. And if you look up at the bottom of our crossmember deal here, we're going to have these two holes. That's what these are going to line up with. but they need to sit on top of that plate. It's going to be set up the same exact way on the other side. And with these, it's definitely kind of tight. You have to kind of find that sweet spot to get them going. But once you kind of do, kind of drop into place. So if you need to, you know, lightly kind of tap it with the hammer, gives you that little bit of extra leverage, you know. We'll get those lined up. To give us as much clearance as possible before we put the center section up, I took a strap, connected it to our exhaust, and pulled it as far over to the passenger side as possible, and kind of down at an angle too. With our center section, you want to make sure that the opening here, it's offset. You want to make sure that that's closer to the front of the truck, and also want to make sure that the handle mechanism will be on your driver's side. And then the hardware that we're going to use will have all these bolts. In each corner, there's going to be some threaded holes there. And so these bolts will go through the factory crossmember into the center section. Then eventually, those plates that we just put up there will have bolts come from the bottom up into that. Just a quick pointer too, before you put this up, if you happen to have an extra 5/8 bolt laying around, one thing you can do is run it through the threaded holes there. This is one that I made, just a regular 5/8 bolt, and I cut some grooves in it just to kind of clean threads out. With the ones that come included, they have some sort of lubricant or Loctite or something on there, so I don't really want to use them to do that. And this isn't an absolute necessary step, but it does seem to make everything go together a little bit easier when you can kind of clean some of that powder coating and stuff out of there beforehand. Grab our center section, get this held up into position, and we'll get our bolts started hand tight. I personally like to get the ones on the side started first, that way the center section will kind of support itself. And then with these, trying to line them up with that nut plate and everything, just be patient. As soon as you get one of them started, it'll make it a little bit easier to get the other one going. With the center section loosely in place, what I like to do is come up in the bed, make sure it looks good, is lined up and everything. Then I make this little apparatus. I just get a couple blocks of wood and a strap and connect the ends of the strap to the pin that'll run across in the hitch, and I just tighten it up to kind of pull that hitch up against the bottom of our truck bed nice and tight and keep it held in place. With the hitch where we want it, we can come back and tighten down the hardware. You want to tighten down the bolts, the 4 bolts on the bottom first. So I have a 15/16. Sometimes this stuff will be somewhat in your way. I'll try to loosen that up a little bit. Might buy me more room here. And for those over there with the exhaust kind of being right there, I have an extension and a swivel to give me a little more room to work here. Once those center ones are snug, you can do these back here, and then of course the ones on the front side. With the hat channel and everything being right here, you don't have a ton of room to get a socket in, at least until it's probably pretty close to being completely tightened. So a box wrench will probably do the trick. until we get it ran down far enough we can actually get a socket on there, I would imagine. So just make sure all of these are snug. Once you have all those bolts snug, you need to make sure and come back with a torque wrench and completely tighten them down to the amount specified in the instructions using that same process. You know, we'll start with the 4 in the middle and then hit the ones on the side. Now you can move to your driver's side wheel well, and right here in this area we're going to be putting our handle that'll attach to our center section. But the thing is, it's kind of tricky to see. There's some wiring that runs along the top of our frame, and it's held in place with just some plastic push pins. And so to give us a little more room, I'm going to release those push pins. I'm just using a trim tool, but you can use a flathead screwdriver. That'll work too. Just pry up on these things and get a couple of them here, and that'll allow us to kind of, you know, reposition this wire out of our way so it don't interfere with our handle. We can take our handle now, and just to give you an idea for the next step, there's holes on the end of the handle. We're going to be dealing with the ones that are at the very end here. And so this is just going to set on top of the frame. And when you put this in, make sure that this is pointing upright. You know, you don't want it turned around facing the ground. So we'll just push it in like that for now. That way we can get it hooked up underneath the truck. Back underneath, there's where our handle's coming out. And you're going to have this bracket here. And we'll attach a bracket to the handle by using a carriage bolt. So that carriage bolt will drop from the top down. And go through the handle like that, and then through the bracket. And then you can get a flange nut started. I'll do the same thing, since there's 2 holes in it there, with another carriage bolt. And another flange nut. Once those are hand tight, you can come back with a 9/16 and tighten them down. Our handle mechanism that's built into the center section, if you just pull that out a little bit, you can take another carriage bolt, drop that through, same deal there, and then our bracket will line up with it. Another flange nut for each end. Get them started and tighten down. With the handle hardware all snug, you want to make sure, come back with your torque wrench and completely tighten it down. Up in the bed of the truck, what you can do, leave your pin engaged. Notice your handle would be closed. That way it runs across. That way you can take your ball, set that in the hitch, and it won't drop all the way down. You know what I mean? And then they give you this template here that you can put over the ball like that. And these are going to give us the locations to drill for our safety chain openings. You want to make sure that, you know, these are facing towards the back of the truck, the rear of the truck. And what I'm going to do is just take a small drill bit, just kind of make a couple marks. And I'm first. That way we can get cardboard out of the way and the ball. There's some more room to work. And then drill those openings out. So I'm just going to start small and eventually get up to the final size. Kind of a heads up too, so you know what to expect. The holes closer to the front of the truck, those will go right through the bed, and those will line up with holes that are in our hitch. The back ones, however, you'll go through the bed and you're going to have to drill through the factory cross member too. So take your time. You know, like I said, I'm going to start small and kind of work my way up to that final size there. Once you get them all the way drilled out, you know, blow away all the metal shavings, cover the bare metal with some paint like we did for the original hole. Then these openings, these safety chains, will drop down through the bed. Underneath the truck where U-bolts come through, you know, we'll have 4 ends. I already did the other 3, but they're gonna all be the same. You can take this spring, push it up over that end. You got this hex nut here. Get that started hand tight, and we want to tighten these down with the 15/16 until the nut is flush with the bottom of the bolt. That's about how you want them to look here. These are locking type nuts, so they will take a little bit of effort to get them tightened down where you need them to be. Underneath, I simply rehung our exhaust the opposite way that we lowered it. You know, re-lubricated the hangers, popped them back into position there. And if you want, you can reinstall the heat shield now at this point too, as well as the spare tire. I'm getting ready to do in-bed wiring next though, so I'm going to leave these parts off since I'm going to be working under here anyway. Don't make sense to have them in my way. But once I'm done with that, I will put everything back up. But with all that said, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the B&W underbed hitch on our 2024 Ram 2500.